Welcome back, friends. We'll be seeing the last part of transfer of titles and delivery, that is under the concept of delivery. I most humbly pray to you to apologize me for having written in small fonts. There is a purpose. I wanted everything to be under one board and so that the flow doesn't miss. So please pardon me for that. I hope definitely you'll pardon me. Let's continue with what we left from the previous session. Performance of the contract of sale is nothing but in this chapter called delivery. Yes, first there has to be passing on of titles, along with it the risk, and last comes the delivery part. So we shall discuss about delivery. Basic points maybe for your 2 marks question. Delivery means voluntary transfer of possession from one person to another. Voluntarily it is being transferred. If something is being snatched, you can't call that as delivery. Note, if possession is taken by unfair means, then it is not delivery. What do you mean by unfair means? Maybe the owner of the goods is not aware that you have taken the goods, you have not even consented or not even taken his approval to take the possession of the goods, but by way of an unfair means, you have taken the delivery of the goods, probably telling him that you are not having the goods but still having it, or you have taken it in such a way that he is disguised and he is basically fooled basically. So in such a way, if you have taken the delivery, then it is not meant to be termed as delivery as per the Sale of Goods Act 1930. Further, if the parties agree something as delivery, then such something is treated as delivery. Generally, delivery means voluntary transfer of goods from one person to another person. If something else is stated in the contract to be termed as delivery, then such thing can be termed as delivery. Let's see further. Example, putting goods in possession of the buyer. That means physically going and handing over the goods is one type of delivery where we know that it is concurrent. You're taking the money and delivering the goods. But putting the goods in possession of the buyer is something a little more than the normal scenario. Let's say the seller has loaded the goods onto the lorry and he's instructed the lorry fellow to hand over the goods to the buyer's godown. He may not have delivered buyer physically, but delivering it to the buyer's godown is as good as delivering it to the buyer. And authorized to hold on behalf of the buyer. That means if let's say in the same lorry example, the seller has loaded the goods to the lorry guy has called up the buyer and tells, yes, he's taken delivery of the goods, and henceforth the goods which is in the lorry is held by the lorry person on behalf of the buyer. Even such is termed as delivery. I hope I have given a sufficient example for you to understand what is meant by delivery. Next, unless and until otherwise stated, 1. The duty of the seller is to deliver and the buyer accepts it and has to pay for them. So basically, in general scenario, the duty of the seller is to deliver the goods and the duty of the buyer is to accept it and pay for it. This is the basics, general. Of course, we can have something else stated in the contract. That is why I have used the word until and unless otherwise stated. Second point, payment and delivery are basically concurrent until and unless otherwise stated. So you pay and take delivery of the goods. From my side, I am taking immediate delivery of the goods and making immediate payment. And from the seller side, he is taking immediate payment of money and is delivering immediate delivery of goods. So basically, if nothing is mentioned in the contract, then delivery and payment are both concurrent conditions. Let's see further what we have to see in rules regarding delivery. This was the basic understanding of what is meant by delivery. then we see the rules as provided under the as provided under the Sale of Goods Act 1930. Rules regarding delivery. First one, delivery. Anything done which has the effect of putting the goods in the possession or holding it on behalf of the buyer is called delivery. So any activity done in such a way that it has the effect, the outcome of it is putting the goods into the physical custody of the buyer, or if it is given to someone else and such someone else is holding the goods on behalf of the buyer, then it is called a delivery. Basically, a smaller or a miniature version of what I just explained here is the first rule of delivery. Second, effect of part delivery. What happens in a part delivery? If done in progress, that means if there is a delivery which is in part and it is continuous part deliveries, then it is nothing but a valid delivery of the whole goods. However, if it is done to sever, if it is done to cut off, if it is done to stop or maybe totally separate oneself, sever means to cut off. But if it is done to sever, then it does not operate as a whole delivery. So let's take an example. If A is supposed to deliver 100 bags of rice to Mr. B by way of 10 bags each month over a period of next 10 months, the fact that Mr. A has delivered 100 bags of rice in the month of January, 100 bags of rice in the month of February, 100 bags of rice in the month of March is nothing but it effectively means the whole delivery of 100 bags. However, if let's say in the month of April he wants to stop the contract and he delivers only 10 bags, he wants to sever the connection with the buyer, say the April month 10th or April month 10 bags what is being done to sever the contract, then it does not operate as though 100 goods have been delivered. So basic point you have to understand in part delivery is even if 10 or 20 or 30 goods have been delivered, it is considered as whole delivery if it is in continuation, if it is a progressive based delivery. However, if any part of the delivery is done to sever the connection, then we cannot call it as a whole delivery. This has lot to got we have lot to understand about these things in line with breach of contract of the Contract Act 1872, remedies for breach of contract, wherein what happens if there is part delivery and there is a severity and it cannot be termed as a whole delivery, it will definitely be treated as breach, and what are the remedies for breach of contract that we see it in Contract Act 1872. Continuing further, the third point of the rules, that is buyer to apply for delivery. Normally, buyer should ask for delivery and seller should then deliver. That is why very clearly I put, until and unless something else is stated, seller is not bound to deliver until the buyer applies, that is asks for delivery. So the basic responsibility of asking for delivery is first on the buyer, then once the buyer has asked for delivery, seller is bound to deliver. Pretty simple and straightforward, I guess. Then fourth point, place of delivery. Now basically it is up to the buyer and seller in each case of the contract to decide which should be the place of delivery. So it is up to the parties to the contract to decide upon the place of delivery, but generally what we understand is if the goods is sold today, then place at which the goods are at the time of sale becomes the place of delivery. Whichever place the goods was at the time of sale, then that place becomes the place of delivery in general terms or in rules regarding the delivery. So if the goods are sold, place at which the goods are at the time of sale becomes the place of delivery, whereas if it is just an agreement to sell, agreed to be sold, then place at which the goods are at the time of agreement becomes the place of delivery. So when it is just a sale, or if it is a sale, wherever the goods were at the time of sale, that place becomes the place of delivery. Where it is an agreement to sell, where ownership is not yet transferred, then at where the goods were at the place of agreement. That means, check this, place at which the goods are at the time of agreement, that place becomes the place of delivery. Note the third interesting situation wherein if the goods are non-existing, it could be a future goods, then place at which these goods, that is these non-existent goods as of today, but to be manufactured or to be produced in future, then place at which they are manufactured or produced becomes the place of delivery. Am I clear with my explanation? I hope so. In continuation with the fifth point, I have designed it in such a way that I can fit everything. Please don't take me wrong. Rather than splitting the sessions which will disturb the continuity, I wanted everything to come under one single platform so that your continuity is not disturbed. Henceforth, a small compromise, kindly adjust for this. The fifth point, as far as rules of delivery is concerned, time of delivery. It's pretty straightforward. If time is fixed in the contract, then go by that time. If time is not fixed in the contract, then we can go for a reasonable time. Reasonable time depends on each facts and situations. It depends upon circumstances of each case. Therefore, it's pretty important to establish what is meant by a reasonable time. Next, time for tender of delivery. What do you mean by tender? Tender means to attempt. Now you connect it with the words. Time for tender of delivery is nothing but time which is attempted to deliver the goods. Which time you have attempted to deliver the goods. Attempt to deliver the goods need not successfully be termed as delivery of the goods. It only gives you a safeguard mechanism, or it puts you under the shelter that you need not go again and ask to deliver, which we have already discussed in Contract Act 1872. What I mean by this is time for tender of delivery. If you have attempted to deliver, what time have you attempted to deliver? Check this. It's ineffectual unless made at a reasonable time. That means your tender for delivery, your attempt to deliver, the time of it becomes ineffectual. It becomes ineffective. It does not have any weightage if it is attempted to be delivered not at a reasonable time. It should be attempted to be delivered at a reasonable time. What do I mean by this? Let's say you are undergoing a business operations, or you are selling certain goods, buying certain goods, and you are entering into a contract, regular trading activity. Normally, when you are attempting to deliver the goods, it is during business hours. You can't come and knock the office doors at 1 a.m. in the morning and say, I am attempting to deliver the goods, kindly accept the delivery. That becomes ineffectual, my dear friends. So, what you have to understand in this is basically the attempt of delivery, the tender of delivery becomes ineffective if it is attempted to be delivered at unreasonable time. So basically you should read it the other way around. If it has to be effective, if the tender has to be effective, your delivery or attempt to deliver should be at reasonable time. Next, expenses of delivery. Until and unless otherwise stated or something else is stated in a contract, expense to put the goods into deliverable state should be borne by the seller. So basically it is the seller's responsibility to bear the expenses to put the goods into a deliverable state. It is not the buyer's responsibility until and unless otherwise stated. If buyer and seller have agreed for something else, then such something else will prevail. But we are seeing the rules regarding delivery. As far as expense of delivery is concerned, it is basically the expense of the seller to put the goods into deliverable state. I hope the 7th point was very clear. Going forward, 8th point, from here it becomes a little more important, and you get into the crux of the point of delivery. Check. Goods in possession of a third party. When the goods is in the possession of the third party, what is the rules of delivery? Check this. Unless and until such third party acknowledges that he holds the goods on behalf of the buyer, no delivery has taken place. When the goods is with the third person, if you recall the example what I gave that time, that is A delivers the goods to B, stating that or A sells or transfers the goods to B before ownership is getting transferred, being an agreement to sell, B has already sold the goods to C. If B holds the goods on behalf of C, then it is as good as delivery to C. That means if a third person is holding the goods on behalf of the owner, that is as good as delivery to the owner. However, the fact that the person mentioned here called B, he has to acknowledge the fact that he is holding it for the new buyer. My lorry example could also be an example that can be used here, where the lorry driver has taken delivery of the goods into his lorry and called up the buyer, informed the buyer that he holds the goods or is transporting the goods henceforth on behalf of the buyer. So therefore, acknowledgement is becoming a pretty important condition here. Without acknowledgement, there cannot be delivery over there. Please note an important inverted comma thing, where issue and transfer of document of titles is not affected. Means just the fact that a person holds it on behalf of another person, it will not disturb whatever we have understood as far as documents of title to goods is concerned. So please revise document of title to goods, come back here, get the link and move to the next point. The next point, delivery of wrong quantity. This is a little funny and little tricky also. Let's see what it is. Delivery. If the delivery of the goods is of lesser quantity, let's say you're asked 100 bags of rice and you've got 95 bags of rice of a particular quality. You've asked 100 bags of rice and the seller has delivered only 95 bags of rice. Then what happens? Accept the lesser part and pay for the lesser part and move on with the contract, or reject the whole quantity as such, because it is nothing but a breach of condition that you wanted 100 units of a particular quality, which is not adhered to. Therefore, you can either reject the contract and move on, or you can accept the contract by accepting the lesser number of units and paying only for the lesser number of units. The situation is not the same when it comes to larger quantity. What happens in a larger quantity? Let's say in the same example, instead of 100 bags, 110 bags were delivered. Then you have three options. One, accept the whole 110 bags and pay for the whole 110 bags, or accept only what is as per the contract and reject the rest. That means accept only 100 bags and reject the 10 bags, or reject the whole, that is reject the complete 110. Again, going back to the basics, it is nothing but a breach of contract, where you had asked for 100, you have got 110. There is no consensus addendum here. The meeting of minds has failed here. Therefore, you either can reject the whole of it. An interesting point to be noted here is, in case of a mixed delivery, say out of 100 bags of quality A, you asked for 100 bags of quality A. 80 bags of quality A product has come, 20 bags of quality B has come. No doubt about 100, but there is a mixture. That is what I meant in case of mixed delivery. What happens? Different description, that is 80 bags of quality A and 20 bags of quality B. Then what happens is, accept only what is as per contract and reject the rest, or reject the whole. The same point as we have already covered above. What he says is, either accept only the 80 bags which you had asked for as quality A and pay for only 80 bags and reject the 20, or reject the whole consignment because it is not as per the terms of the contract. So the explanation as far as delivery of wrong quantity, I hope, is convincing to you to understand and observe. The next point is installment deliveries. Very critical. What he says is, unless and until otherwise stated, buyer is not bound to accept installment deliveries. So by default, buyer is not bound to accept installment deliveries, which means the buyer and the seller have to agree upon these terms and conditions well before the contract is signed. Once the contract is signed, we go by the terms of the agreement. If there is nothing about the installment delivery part in the contract, then buyer is not bound to accept installment delivery. That's what I say here. Note, in such cases, rights and liabilities have to be determined by the parties in the contract itself. So basically, the buyer is not bound to accept installment delivery. In case there is an installment delivery, first and foremost, it should find place in the contract. If by chance that is also not found, please make sure that while drafting the contract, the rights and liabilities have to be determined by the parties to the contract. If in case of installment delivery is the only way out for you to adhere to the terms and conditions or to execute the contract. I hope the example was clear. Next, delivery to a carrier, that means a transporter. We have already discussed this. It's just a matter of one more rule as far as rules of delivery is concerned. What is it? If it is for transmission to the buyer, if the goods are loaded by the seller to the lorry guy or the railway guy or the ship guy to be delivered to the buyer, the moment the goods have been delivered to the transporter for the purpose of transmission to the buyer, then it is deemed to have been delivered to the buyer, because the transporter as such is holding these goods on behalf of the buyer henceforth. Therefore, it technically becomes a deemed delivery to the buyer. Of course, we have other conditions which we have seen, wherein the seller can reserve the right of disposal. In our previous video, please go back and check to it. If the seller says only upon the order of the seller the delivery of the goods can happen, then the seller reserves the right of disposal. It could be also for securing the payment of price. So by default, the rules of delivery states that if the delivery is made to a carrier, then the delivery is deemed to have made to the buyer until and unless otherwise stated. For example, if the seller reserves the right of disposal. Moving further, deterioration during the transit of goods. Here, generally transit of goods deterioration or the effectiveness, the packing and the safety part of goods generally lies on the seller. It is his responsibility to make sure and ensure that the goods are delivered in a deliverable state to the buyer. But remember, if it is for distant places, no doubt the seller is taking the risk. But if it is for distant places, liability is on the buyer even if the seller takes the risk of transportation. What do I mean by this? If it is a far off place, if it is going to take a long time to transport the goods, it is quite natural that the goods can get deteriorated during the process of transportation. So the basic risk, if it is a distant place of deterioration, lies on the buyer, even though the risk of transportation is with the seller. I hope you got the point. Last point regarding the rules regarding delivery is buyer's right to examine the goods, which is nothing but the basic point itself. Seller is bound on the request, mind it, seller is bound only on the request of the buyer to provide a reasonable opportunity or reasonable examination of goods to check whether it confirms as per the contract. So seller is not straightforward bound, he is not straightforward bound to show the goods. Buyer should request the seller, then seller should give a reasonable opportunity of examination of the goods. It's not the right of or it is not the obligation of the seller by default to show the goods for the buyer to check it. It is first the request of the buyer, and then the seller is bound to show or give a reasonable examination of the goods just to check whether the goods are matching with as per the terms of the contract. So, my dear friends, these were the rules regarding delivery. Expected question in my opinion for the exams. Please do revise this again and again. I am left with a small topic regarding acceptance, which I will cover in a short video in the next session. Kindly go through this again and again. If you have any doubts, please do mail me back at loachacademy@gmail.com. I will revert back to you. Thank you.